What is up, YouTubers? This is HarpyHunter89, and the voices in my head coming at you from the Duelist Den. And for today's Archetype breakdown, we are going to be talking, of course, about Trickstars. Now, Trickstars are a relatively new deck that made their debut in Code of the Duelist, and even though the TCG does not have all of the support for them yet, they are still a very powerful deck and starting to show relevance in the current meta. Now, at the time of recording this video, the ban list has not dropped, so Zeus and True Drakers are still a big thing. And even though they are the main decks right now, Trickstars can easily OTK the living fuck out of them. But anyway, as far as the monsters for this deck are concerned, they are all light fairy type monsters. And we're going to go ahead and start with them. Lilybell is a level 2 with 800 attack and 2000 defense, and the effect states that this card is added to your hand except by drawing it. You can special summon it from your hand. You can only gain this effect once per turn, and it can attack your opponent directly, and when it deals damage to your opponent, you can target a Trickstar monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. This allows you to easily get recursion of the Trickstar monsters that are sitting in your graveyard. It also allows you to go into some pretty just broken combos by bringing it back out to the field after using Lycris and doing a second direct attack to get a second recursion. Next is, of course, Trickstar Lycris. Lycris is a level 3 with 1600 attack and 1200 defense. The effect states that it is a quick effect, and you can reveal this card from your hand, then target a Trickstar monster you control, special summon this card, and return that monster to your hand. Now, this is very, very important because the effects of Lycris do stack. So you only need one Trickstar monster on your field in order to special summon 3 Lycris from your hand off of their effects. The effect continues that each time a card is added to your opponent's hand, inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each card. Now, that's adding to your hand by any means, whether it be by drawing the card, by adding a card from the graveyard to their hand, searching it out of their deck, bouncing a card from the field to their hand. However a card gets to your opponent's hand is 200 damage for each card added to their hand. Next up, and this is an OCG only card right now, I'm dying for this card to get over to the TCG, is Trickstar Narcissus. It's a level 4 with 1000 attack and 1800 defense, and the effect is that if your opponent takes effect damage, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only use this effect of Trickstar Narcissus once per turn, and each time a monster in your opponent's hand or graveyard activates its effect, inflict 200 damage to your opponent immediately after it resolves. So as you can see, the hand traps are a big deal right now. So having this card in the TCG would sort of deter the whole, I'm going to Ash Blossom something or Ghost Ogre one of your cards bullshit that Trickstars have issues with. Next up is, of course, Trickstar Candina. It is a level 4 with 1800 attack and 400 defense, and the effect is that when this card is normal summoned, you can add one Trickstar card from your deck to your hand, and each time your opponent activates a spell or trap card, inflict 200 damage to your opponent immediately after it resolves. Now, the downside to Candina is that you have to normal summon it in order for its effect to go off. That means it has really great synergy with cards such as Chain Summoning, which can only be activated as Chain Link 3 or higher and allows you to perform 3 normal summons a turn, and Double Summon, which allows you to perform 2 normal summons in a turn. Now, the way this works is you normal summon Candina, chain Lycris's effect to Candina's effect, then chain summoning to Lycris's effect. This gives you multiple summons during the turn, or you can just activate the double summoning to get a second double summon out off of your Candina. Now, Trickstars currently only have one spell and one trap, and the spell is Trickstar Light Stage. Now, Light Stage, when it's activated, allows you to add a Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand, and once per turn, you can target a set spell or trap card your opponent controls. For the remainder of this turn, that card cannot be activated, and during the end phase, it must be activated or it is destroyed. So essentially, this stops your opponent from using one of their back row against you. Then during the end phase, it forces them to activate it, or it's destroyed. Now, the downside of this is that if it's like something like a normal spell card, like a Regeki that they set, then they can choose to activate that Regeki during the end phase, even though it's still your turn, due to the effect of Light Stage forcing the activation. Now, the trap card is Trickstar Reincarnation. This card banishes your opponent's entire hand, and then they draw cards equal to the number of the cards they banished. You can also banish this card from your graveyard to special summon a Trickstar monster from your graveyard. Now, Reincarnation works really great with Lycris, as it forces them to draw cards in order to go into the burn damage. Now, there are some generic trap cards as well that do similar things to Reincarnation that force burn damage off of Lycris, such as Disturbance Strategy, which forces your opponent to shuffle their hand into their deck, then draw cards equal to the number of cards they shuffled into their deck. And of course, Present Card, which forces your opponent to discard their hand and then draw 5 cards. The downside to Present Card, though, is that you can only activate 1 Present Card a turn. It's the only downside to Present Card. Now, being as Trickstars do have the ability to force your opponent to discard their hand and draw cards, they do have great synergy with Droll and Lockbird, as Droll and Lockbird stops them from adding cards from their deck to your hand. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the Droll and Lockbird combo, merely because, if you have a Lycris on your field, you want them adding cards to their hand. So, if you don't have a Lycris, the Droll and Lockbird is very, very powerful, but if you do have Lycris on the field, you don't really want to use the Droll and Lockbird. Also, as they are all light fairy type monsters, they do have great synergy with Honest as well. Now, Honest, what it does is when a light monster you control battles, you can discard this card from your hand to the graveyard in order to have your monster gain attack equal to the attack of the monster it is battling. Now that we're done with the main deck cards, Trickstars do also boast their own assortment of extra deck monsters as well. And these first two or all three of them are Link monsters, of course. And the first two that I'm going to be talking about are OCG only. But, like I said, we're going to be getting these soon. Hopefully, we'll be getting these soon. But anyway, the first one is Black Catbat. It is a Link 2 with 2000 attack. It requires 2 Trickstars in order to Link summon it. And the effect states that each time a monster or monster that this card points to is sent to the graveyard, inflict 200 damage to your opponent. And if your opponent takes effect damage from a Trickstar monster's effect, all face-up monsters that your opponent currently controls lose 200 attack for each monster this card currently points to until the end phase of this turn. So this punishes your opponent for getting rid of your monsters by weakening its attack. The second Link monster is Trickstar Bloody Mary. Again, another OCG only card at the moment. It is a Link 2 with 2000 attack. Again, requires 2 Trickstar monsters to Link summon. This card's effect is each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone this card points to, gain 200 life points. You can discard 1 Trickstar card and each player draws 1 card. If this effect is activated while your life points is at least 2,000 higher than your opponent's, you draw 2 cards instead, and you can only use this effect of Bloody Mary once per turn. So, obviously, if you're running Trickstars, odds are your life points are going to be 2,000 higher than your opponent. So instead of being a 1-for-1 on the draw effect, Bloody Mary is a +1 on the draw effect for yourself. It does allow your opponent to draw a card too, but that just helps you a little bit, especially if you have Lycris on the field. The final extra deck monster is Trickstar Holly Angel. It is a Link 2 with 2000 attack, and the effect states that each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone this card points to, inflict 200 damage to your opponent. Trickstar monsters this card points to cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, and if your opponent takes damage by a Trickstar monster's effect, this card gains attack equal to the damage they took until the end of this turn. So not only does this card burn you, or burn your opponent, it gains attack when it does so, and it stops your other Trickstars from being destroyed by battle or card effects. So this card is a really, really great card to have in the deck. Now, there are a few other support cards that this deck can use. Those cards include Dark Room of Nightmare, which deals 300 damage to your opponent every time they take effect damage by an effect other than Dark Room of Nightmare. It also has great synergy with Chain Energy, which forces both players to pay 500 life points every time they summon a monster or activate a card from their hand or set a card from their hand. Now this is very, very important, especially if you go first and you can open with this card. Because during the draw phase, obviously you're going to be able to burn your opponent for a fuck ton of damage. And that essentially means your life points are going to be higher, so you can, pay the life points, whereas your opponent can't afford to pay them. Another card that this deck has great synergy with, again, is Clashing Souls. Now, I did a card talk video about this, So that card talk video should be up. Yeah, it should be up by this point. But anyway, Clashing Souls is whenever your attack position monster engages in battle with your opponent's attack position monster, the player with the lowest attack point monster, or whoever's monster has lowest attack points, can pay 500 life points to have their monster gain 500 attack points. And you can keep repeating this effect. Both players are allowed to use this effect until a player decides not to pay the 500 life points. And if a monster will be destroyed by that battle, send all cards that player controls to the graveyard instead. Now, this is very, very important, especially if you go first, again, for the same reason as Chain Energy, because if you go first, odds are you will have the life points to pay, but your opponent will not. But anyway, that's the end of this archetype breakdown. Let me know what you guys think about this deck down in the comment section below. As always, guys, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you check me out on all the social media networks and go and support me on Patreon. Also, don't forget the next rate YouTuber signups are still going on right now. So if you want to enter that competition, the link to the rules and registration video will be in the description box down below. Make sure you check that out if you want to enter the competition. But until next time, this is Harpy189 and the voices in my head. Just wanted to say Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not just a game. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is life.